Good afternoon. My name is Kirsty Dignam, and I'm here to look at the weekly energies. I think with today's Monday's Musings on the 23rd of February 2026. Now, the reason I say I think, this is the second time I am recording this. I'm hoping, I'm so tempted to pause, to stop, to check that I'm being heard. Because the first time was a bloody good video, looking at everything that is happening and looking at how to best navigate it, as is always the case. And for some reason, my microphone just didn't record. There is no reason for it. I've looked into it. The wire was connected. The settings were on. Everything was perfect. But apparently, it was no longer needed. It was no longer needed. There was a lot of wisdom there. There was a lot of sharing there. There was a lot of insights there that aren't needed. That just aren't needed. So with that in mind, my question, or the question it seems to be this week, is, are we willing to let it all go? Are we actually willing to try? One of the things that did come up in the last video were some cards that I were tempted to use in relation to plant medicine, and the plant wisdom that came out, the card that came out was, are we willing to try? To persevere, to try. To focus on what is being asked to be shared of us, through us, from us, by us, with us, in our actions now. There was a lot in the last reading about the masculine. There was a lot in the last reading about how we are going to see individually and collectively a call for masculinity to stand in governance and accountability, to take care of the country that they are in, the families they are parts of. Now, I don't mean gender here. And yes, I can feel the temptation to look into things like the royal family and politics, but bringing it back, it's about focusing, or this video is about focusing, as like all of them, focusing on our own individual responsibility within the global scenarios that are playing out. This week, as you can hear, I'm kind of reeling, shall we say, or recovering from a clearing, from a frequency light upgrade, from a cold, from a common cold that has shown me where I need to take care of myself more, that has shown me where I berate myself for feeling sorry for myself, that has shown me, where I'm just repeating things regardless of my view or my hope or my willingness to change. I haven't. Because I haven't come back to the vibration that's been needed, the more sacred masculine within me that is loving, that is nurturing, that says, actually, this isn't good for you, or this isn't doing you any good, or, take better care of yourself. Place yourself at the center of what it is you're trying to achieve. Why is that important? Well, again, I don't want to go on to the last message too much. I'm just aware that my screen is flickering, and the last time I did that, it didn't record. So fingers crossed. Why is that important? To ensure that we don't take more than we need, to ensure there's harmony and balance and reciprocity with ourselves and our environment, to ensure that we are, as an eco aspect, as a living organism within our surroundings, adding to a more fertile landscape rather than draining it of its resources. There was a lot that came through regarding cultural appropriation. But underneath that, the lack of respect, including ancestral wisdom and healing and knowledge that is being used more as an excuse than permission to move the monadic soul forward. In many guises, the potential that is not being tapped into, that is causing frustration all around. by not taking responsibility for acknowledging that we too are an ancestor, that the earth is an ancestor, that plants are an ancestor, that animals are an ancestor, and that in that we all need governance to ensure where we are consuming rather than creating. Which brings me on to the final part I will mention about, I was going to say last week's reading. It feels like it was a week ago, the reading earlier. Yeah. Do we enjoy the creative process? In a world where, you know, from The Secret through to vision boards and fire ceremonies and circles and increased awareness around our role within manifestation, the question really feels like, do we enjoy it? Because it is there to be enjoyed also. Creativity is a wonderful gift and process that we go through that isn't about the end result. We know that. But how often do we get impatient? And what impact does that have on our ability to really appreciate and honour the ceremony that is creativity? Anything else on that? It feels important to acknowledge that we can go into a story. Storytelling is a wonderful, wonderful healing modality. We can go into storytelling, but we must come out the other side, completing the circle, closing down the circle, allowing it to evolve into something new. That is what changes when we think of the Wheel of Fortune. You know, it goes up, which is what this whole year is about. It goes up, round and down, round. You know, think of the medicine wheel. It's continually moving, just like the sun that's just been eclipsed, that is now visible. Things continually change. This week, have we within them? Maybe worth feeling into. So I'm not going to add any more to that. And who knows, I might be able to do this for 20 minutes so Instagram gets the full reading as well. If that isn't the case, yeah, 20 minutes into it, I will have to stop it for Instagram because of their restrictions. And the rest will be available on TikTok, or the whole video will be on YouTube for free. Well, as we look into the energies this week and how to navigate them. It's so tempting. It's so tempting to go back over everything that I shared. There was some wonderful wisdom there about wounds and healing and cycles. And do you know what? We're just going to have to trust. Because the emphasis this week is how willing we are to not only see the light, be the light, but lighten up the things that are preventing this. Energies this week and how to best navigate it, to trust that what we share is what is needed. We can't give the answers for other people. Half of the process of walking the medicine wheel. Oh, how interesting these two cards came out. The process of walking the medicine wheel, of becoming our own medicine, is to process it, to experience it, to find our own answers. We have the 5 of arrows, frustration here, and the 5 of bows, empowerment. And this is where we can call upon our previous experience and wisdom. So these came up before with the message, and that message was in order to navigate, not avoid the frustration. The frustration this week is important. It's going to show us where we are out of alignment, out of focus, or indecisive. If we can feel into that this week, connected to the earth, grounded in our body, the masculine-based actions that will come as a result, individually and collectively, will be more empowering. They will reunite us with a deeper spiritual resonance that can only come by embracing the masculine back into the feminine arms. Now, that may be in a relationship. That may be nurturing our actions, those that have got us to where we are. That may be opening ourselves up wider to a much needed, more vast perspective of masculinity. The patriarchy has damaged the masculine for us all, regardless of gender. The stories of the earth have risen for us to see the invitation to be responsible for our actions, all of us. And this week, that's going to be really highlighted. Depending on what we choose to focus on, right? I could just leave it there. Okay. Oh, there is joy. There was nurture in the last reading, and if we can really sense into that nurturing and not the lessons we use to recreate the need for it, the permission for it, the acceptance of it, and then it's light. It is light, actually. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. Okay, so the King of Stones was also in the reading for the Monday, actually. So knowing that however we get to where we need to get to, that's where we need to get to. That the process itself, the enjoyment of the process itself, I can hear and feel a lot of naysaying energy like, well, that's spiritual bypassing, that's this, that, whatever. Whatever is calling you out this week is an opportunity to look at your process. How grounded you are in it, how willing you are to take leadership and ownership of it. Can we look at the alpha male in the pack of the wolves and see the misrepresentation of what it means to be masculine, of what it means to be strong, of what it means to be a leader? I'm not saying all leaders are men, okay? But what it means, that driven, focused energy, what that actually means. Because the alpha male wolf isn't the throat-tearing, dog-eat-dog energy we've been made to believe that it is. And we're all going to be encouraged to look at where that outdated view is leaving us frustrated with the repetitive scenarios that we are creating in order to discover something we may not quite be willing to allow to call us out. Okay. How are we doing for times? Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, interesting, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, overall. Okay, we have the Nine of Wands here. There is a need, it's very crazy, like shamanic energy. It can almost feel quite trippy this week. I'm wounded. All the time we only see things that are directly in front of us. All the time there's a big difference between blinkered and focused. Overall, the energy this week is the Nine of Bows, which is respect. And I've just felt into my need to try and cram it all into Instagram, and it's like, just relax. You can always cut it down and give what is needed to trust the process. A lot of the wounding this week is going to come from this knee-jerk reaction to get it right, this knee-jerk reaction to be everyone to everything. Now, I'm not saying that's not possible, but unless we respect ourselves within that, it's going to feel as if it's hard work. There's a big difference to in serving and being in service, and that difference is to acknowledge our place, our importance, and to respect that. We are the one that ultimately will make the decisions and choices, or we need to be the one that will ultimately make the decisions and choices that are required now. With the Leo Aquarius solar eclipse, there was a real emphasis on the balance between the relationship we have with ourselves and our needs and wants and desires, and those that we have with the environment. There are many people that are singing for their supper, which is beautiful, earning their wage. Be mindful where that may get us to focus on things that we wouldn't normally focus on, or to be certain ways we wouldn't normally be. Remain authentic within your sharing, regardless who's paying for it, or watching it, or employing you. That's a choice, that's a constant choice that we will face from Monday onwards, and we have the Lovers here. What I see is a hand fasting, but they're actually being tied. They're being tied to a tree. They're being tied to the ancestral roots here, one of the things that came up. And that's where I can see why the last video was cancelled. Yeah, I've been collectively cancelled, consciously cancelled. Because one of the messages underneath was actually that there's been a lot of healing, and that the ancestors, and by ancestors I mean the earth, the plants, the animals, our journey so far is ready for us to take this forward, our ancestors as well. but that the resistance is currently coming from the choices that need to be made by those that are walking the path now, which is ourselves. Because not only are we collectively holding ourselves back, we are holding back the ancestors that are sharing their wisdom, their knowledge, their gifts with us to help us to do so. But also one day we will become an ancestor. What are we choosing to tie the generations to come to in our actions? That's going to take some choices. We are in the magician year, and one of the biggest things with the magician is the infinity symbol. To recognize, Neptune and Saturn going into Aries, the karma that comes from not owning our focus and direction, not owning our vision, simply by not doing it or becoming it. So I can see where I'm being shown over-explaining for myself confuses the situation, and that actually one of the gifts that's been given to me is to get to the point, to bring clarity. I'm aware of my own discomfort with that. We're going to be shown what we're capable of this week. The choice is whether or not we embody that. It's going to align to what it is we're trying to achieve, and it's going to help the enjoyment we have in creating the potential. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to try? On the Wednesday, we have the Woodward. In this deck, it's number 11, and in this deck, it's actually the Strength card. It's not Justice, but in this deck, it's reversed. And the reason that I'm laughing is on the card is the Bobcat. Now, the Bobcat has been coming to me this morning in my own meditation, in the reading that has just happened as the Page of Stones. But here, the Bobcat is by the side of the Wood Ward. Being shown that from my ancestors because Ward was my surname. Okay, be aware what is for you. And recognize perhaps any resistance to receiving it. The whole hour's video that has just occurred was actually a big chunk of it was for me, which is why it hasn't been shared. This isn't about oversharing. This is about acknowledging what is ours to process. And that isn't always the case, particularly this week, particularly on the Tuesday. Oh, okay. There have been many things that we have been trying to achieve, many wounds that needed to be processed that we have taken on board as our own that weren't, that have actually been fixed by those that needed, not fixed, but healed by those that needed to. The process could have been a lot smoother by now if we just realized what was ours to carry forward and what wasn't. And that invitation is going to come up more on the Tuesday. Okay, I am going to say, this is where I'm going to stop it for Instagram. So cruel. But there's an emphasis here to seek more information if you want it. And that is going to be either the latter half of this video on TikTok or the whole video on YouTube. The choice here is whether or not you want the whole story, particularly on the Tuesday, or whether or not you're happy with what you've got so far and recreating that. If you are, this is where I sign off for Instagram because of restrictions that are out of my control. If not, the other half is on TikTok or the whole video is on YouTube. If you are joining me from TikTok, you will get the latter half of this video. The full video, actually no. If you are joining me on TikTok, we can do the whole video because do you know what? The restrictions are less here. I can do a longer recording, and that it feels almost like a not an award as such, but a recognition of the energies that have gone the course. Okay, the recognition of the time that it takes to hear the whole story play out. So TikTok, Wednesday, the King of Arrows, the Kingfisher. Now, we did have in the previous reading the King of Cups, I think it was, in the Heron. This time we have the King of Arrows. So if we can decide what it is we're not willing to recreate unnecessarily, If we can get to the point, particularly on the Wednesday, we will see how far we've come collectively and refocus and recalibrate. That's the word I'm hearing. Recalibrate, reintegrate what it is we're trying to achieve here in the Kingfisher. The Kingfisher in this image is flying over a very, very calm pond, very still emotions on the Wednesday. So even though both cards are different elements in these readings, they all portray the same message. Communication needs to be clear. We need to remain balanced in our mindset on the Wednesday and allow what is moving to move. Keep coming back to our center core, whether that's the vision that we have for ourselves and the world that we are trying to create, or our families, or the environment, or our work, or, well, it is the vision we have and what we're trying to create. The same card that came up in the other reading is the Five of Stones and its endurance. Now in this reading, it's upright. I'm starting to wonder again if this is recording. Yeah, in this reading on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is upright. Ironically, in the last reading, it was a Thursday. It was just upside down. The endurance is real this week. It may not feel like it needs to be as hard as it is, but the truth of the matter is there are going to be times when we need to step away from things. And the hardship comes by not respecting that truth. So that Nine of Bows, not respecting ourselves within it. The struggle comes when we don't acknowledge where we need to take a step back. Victim mentality, yes, of course, that was the potential in the previous reading if we don't learn from the lessons. However, or the fact that we're not learning from the lessons, but the lesson actually is the communication that we have with our body. The awareness, the responsibility, the guardianship to take charge of what we need. And that means if things are a bit too much on the Thursday, come back, step back, take some time, go within, recreate that spark, whether that's for a job, a relationship, whatever it is you're trying to manifest. Come back into the body, see where you're at. What do you need in order to continue gestating what it is you're trying to achieve? Ironically, on the Friday, well, not ironically, it's nothing that we don't know, but on the Friday, that's what brings the change in the Wheel of Fortune. In this card, the wheel is a t-shirt that has been weaved. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. One of the things that came to me this weekend with the cold that I have was a huge heart expansion, an awareness of everything that I had experienced, both quote-unquote good and bad, that had opened my heart. And the invitation to sit with that brought through, and this is where I'm hearing that part, most of that part was for me, so brought through wisdom that I am being encouraged to integrate regarding my own light and the love that I not only have, but can share. That has been crafted, that has been weaved throughout my life. On the Friday, the change comes by acknowledging where we may not be sure of our gifts, where we may not be sure what is occurring, it's not that we're not sure, it's that we're unable to see everything that has changed, ourselves included. On the Friday, take a step back. Well, on the Thursday, take a step back. If things feel particularly samey, take a step back, feel into what has changed and allow that to move you forward. Because on the Saturday we have 8 of arrows. We do have the struggle on the Saturday, but it's not our struggle, it's the environment that we find ourselves in. So there's always a choice. Just like this video, you can either have up until the Wednesday because of the environment and the restrictions that are there, or you can make the choice to find a different platform. To find a different structure, to find a different system or way of being. And the struggle on the Saturday is not acknowledging that the environment we find ourselves in is restricting us more than it needs to. On the Sunday, that comes with temperance. On the Sunday, that comes with a mass. Yes, and it is a mass Kundalini awakening from within, a mass healing actually that comes from the earth. Now, it could result in geographical shifts. geographical shifts and earth changes, but either way, it's an opportunity to rebalance the masculine and feminine, our intuitive actions, our past, our future, ourselves, our ancestors, reciprocity, the connection that we have to the earth, to make sure that we're not taking on more than we're being asked to do. Greed comes in many ways. Okay, greed comes in many ways, and it can come in the way of wisdom and lessons also. Are we sharing that? Have we restored balance with that? Are we using what we have gained for appropriation of our own narrative? Being mindful this week. Allowing it to call us out. Any frustration that we feel, actually frustration isn't here anymore. It was in the last reading. Instead, we have respect of the struggle that brings the balance. There's a difference between respecting a struggle and not honouring it in its repetition. There is. And that difference is rites of passage. That difference is celebrating in ceremony, whether that's a cup of tea. It's one of the things that came up in the last video. A cup of tea, the importance of, we live in such a fast world now where you can have caffeine and just knock it back. And caffeine is a medicine. It's a medicine like cannabis. It's a medicine like peyote, which was one of the plants that really wanted to come through in the last video. We may see a rise in plant allies and medicine. We may see a downfall of it as well from overconsumption. And that downfall could come either in it not growing anymore or it causing diseases that we're only just realizing. Medicine needs to be taken in moderation, whether that's wisdom that we've gained, whether that's healing, whether that's plants, whether that's pharmaceuticals, whether that's relationships that teach us the same lessons. All of these things need to be done in moderation and in balance. Coming back to the heart space, coming back to the beauty of things, coming back to the presence. So one of the messages from T was to be with it. In the old days, my nan used to have a cup of tea with somebody, excuse me, take our own medicine. Mine's actually water, but she used to sit with people and have a cup of tea. I mean, she read the tea leaves, but beyond that, she'd sit with people and have a cup of tea, and she'd slow down, and she'd listen and observe, and just be in her own heart, which gave them permission to be in theirs. And that was a ritual. And I didn't realize it back then, but that made her the greatest healer I've seen so far in my whole life. Not based on what she can do, not based on what she could offer, but based on who she could be. There is, and that's the mass Kundalini rising, there is a mass awakening. There always is a mass awakening, but actually I don't want to downplay it. There is a mass awakening occurring. And a remembrance of the healers that we are, the empaths that we are, the magi that we are, the incredible embodied souls that we are. Enjoy it. Be with it. It doesn't have to be this song and dance. It doesn't have to be a show and tell. It's important that we take our own medicine. Listen to what we're saying. Be aware when we're not being heard, particularly by ourselves. And restore that balance purely by acknowledging our own gifts. And that gift is our presence. It's all a choice this week, a choice to temper what we take on as our own. It doesn't come down to strength or courage. Excuse me. Doesn't come down to strength or courage per se, but a recognition of the stories that we have tied ourselves to and the way that we communicate them. Is there anything else to add to that? I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. I advise you do the same as and when you can. Yeah, and I'll see you next week, and keep my fingers crossed that this is actually recorded.